took over, and we had just gone nuclear, both in India and Pakistan, the European Central Bank was created. The nuclear stalemate offered a chance to break from history, and Nawaz Sharif and Vajpayee shook hands, but then we went to war in Kargil. And then we saw the emergence of more disputes between India and Pakistan, the water disputes, which seemed to defy resolutions. And in the case of Pakistan, I think this was the time that once we got into beyond 2000, Pakistan signed a free trade agreement with China. And that was really the first break in terms of Pakistan looking at trade and globalization in a systematic kind of a fashion. And this reinforced our political relationship, which before that with China was primarily political and military, but it didn't have the economic underpinnings. So by 2005, the composite dialogue between India and Pakistan was launched, and Musharraf, Vajpayee, Mr. Manmohan Singh were all involved in this, but it was derailed by terrorism in Mumbai. And since then has been hostage to every incident on our borders or within our borders. Going back to Europe, in June 2009, they elected the European Parliament, which was the biggest transnational elections in history, with 736 members of European Parliament elected by 500 million Europeans, thus sealing the process that, in the words of the British Prime Minister, was carried out to heal the wounds of European history. It seems we have yet to move towards effectively healing the wounds of our own history in the subcontinent. Whereas in Europe, every leader, from Churchill, Adenauer, de Gaulle, Willy Brandt, Mitterrand, Schulz, and many others, they piloted the creation of the European Union. In our case, our leaders have remained cautious and wary of taking risks for peace. If we have to heal the wounds of history in the subcontinent, then we have to be very, very persistent, and we have to make a continuous effort to try to bring closure and bring peace and prosperity. The task is enormous. We need to change mindsets of our young and old alike. Our leaders and people behave as if we are permanent enemies. Until this mindset changes and we reinforce at our highest levels of leadership the belief that we can be friends, the problems will keep popping up. We will not be able to move ahead. We will be held hostage to every fanatic, demagogue, communist, terrorist that wants to derail us. We need broad-based bipartisan support for the Pakistan-India rapprochement. We are running out of time. The world is moving on, and our region is still mired in selective history. I was just looking at the World Bank's doing business indicators. We are ranked almost 130 out of 185 countries. India is also not rated very well. And this is what we need to change. And in that context, the 1.6 billion citizens of South Asia need to fully embrace globalization, and we have to define the frameworks in our region to jointly benefit from global capital markets, global telecommunication systems, global product markets, and global tourism markets. When at a push of a button, billions of dollars shift from one region to another, no region, let alone a region of nuclear power, can afford an environment of uncertainty and remain unaffected by global forces. A region beset with global terrorism cannot cope with the menace without close cooperation and trust. We have to make a choice: either stay with the status quo and muddle along, or secure our future in developing a common future of peace and prosperity. We need to work on joint frameworks that create resilience in the face of transnational terrorism, rather than retaliation against assaults on territorial sovereignty. We need to cooperate in intelligence collection, covert action, preemptive intervention. Cooperation amongst us has to be on participating in the globally dynamic capital, commodity, and information markets, rather than focusing largely on domestic production and the generation of opportunities for our citizens based on international competitiveness rather than on protections. The change will need highest level of statesmanship from our leaders, both in India and Pakistan. And this morning I asked, are there any champions for this? And we were not very sure, even though ICRIAR said yes, ICRIAR is a champion for Pakistan-India relationships. I think we need to develop the action plans. We need to set milestones and time-bound actions so we get to this region becoming a global engine of growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Salman Sahab. Review of the gamut of Indo-Pakistan relationship, which goes, as you said, far beyond trade, and you quoted numerous examples. Of course, the one very broad theme is the asymmetric pattern of behavior between what is happening in Europe as compared perhaps to what is happening between India and Pakistan. And the fact that Europe seems to have really, in the last 2 years, begun to slide backwards can be no source of comfort, because we have, of course, a long way to go. You summed up your statement by saying that the atmosphere of uncertainty and trust needs to be somehow reversed. And I think that that's the big challenge. And I think that, it would be fair to really ask you that, apart from the usual story of what are the ways in which this mindset change can take place, what to take the prerogative of having the privilege of presiding over this, if I may ask you, what would you suggest are some of the tangible steps which can lead to this mindset change? I agree with you. I said that there are virtuous circles between reinforcing trade, commerce, and investment, and the multiplier gains this has in improving the understanding on various other areas. But would you want to share with us some tangible thoughts which you have on improving this mindset?
On an annual basis, to review progress. Have we made that progress or not? And in Pakistan, I think we have had at least 3 or 4 invitations to the Indian Prime Minister to visit Pakistan, and it seems that the timing is not ripe. So I think that's a very tentative approach to Pakistan-India relationship if we are going to look for timing to be ripe. So one thing is that the leadership of both countries have to send out this message that yes, we are in this together, and it cannot be derailed. It's continuous, it can't be reversed, and progress has to be made. So I think that's the first kind of approach which has to be done, is to give the backing at the highest levels. So that part is missing in our relationship at this point in time. We are indulging in, I guess, cricket diplomacy, or we are indulging in religious diplomacy. But really, I mean, the future of 1.6 billion should not need those kinds of diplomatic efforts. We should directly start talking about this. And then I think we should have the composite dialogue, move on, move forward. Let's make progress over there. We have done a lot of work. We have to create zones of opportunities, zones of cooperation, and so the Musharraf Manmohan Singh dialogue needed to be continued. And we have to work from where they left. Somebody else has to take off from that point onwards. And then I think we need to have a lot more people-to-people contact, because that is something which can really change the dynamics. And I think there's one flight from Lahore to Delhi, and if it gets cancelled, you are in deep trouble. And then you have to make all kinds of arrangements to make a journey of 45 minutes. You have to go through lots of hoops and hurdles to be able to do it. And I think there are lots and lots of issues in India-Pakistan trade relationship, and there are, of course, a lot more issues in the India-Pakistan relationship. So I think it's a good approach to get the trade relationship going, and that can really help the other part going. So a simultaneous approach would be good. And people, the uncertainty kills trade. Uncertainty kills investment. So in my scheme of things, I would say, let's focus first tourism. Let's open it up. Let them travel. Let them see the two countries. I mean, the visa should be like in other countries. Why should you have visa for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 cities? Why not for the whole country? And yesterday we were in Ajmer, and we had a booking. I don't know, Pradeep, you did the booking. And unfortunately, you booked out just outside the limits of Ajmer. And when we reached the hotel, they said, "We are sorry, you can't live here. Your visa doesn't say that you can live outside of Ajmer." And then when we were inside Ajmer, then there were other issues which were quite, like reawakening for us, that because this was the first time you were struggling with the visa policy of the two countries. So I think there is a lot of work to be done. And we are, I think, being complacent about these things.
Thank you. Floor is open for any questions or comments. Yes, please.
Shah Sahab, I think I'll start from where you ended. The visa regime you spoke about.
You just introduce yourself.
My name is Arif Nizami. I am the editor of Pakistan Today. I just came with Shah Sahab. I think you mentioned that both India and Pakistan have a problem, according to World Bank. It's a country where you can do business, and we come at the bottom of the. But I think the real problem is India and Pakistan have yet to evolve a modus vivendi of doing business with each other. Today, when I heard a lot of speeches very encouraging about India-Pakistan trade and how it was a win-win situation. And I thought that, yes, visa is the key to it. And people visiting each other, especially a gentleman who was sitting with me in the discussion in the morning, he thought in Pakistan everything is controlled by the military. There is no democracy there. This is precisely the problem. And we know very little about India, which means you should have freer visa regimes. But when I went back, I saw on television that from tomorrow, group visa, tourist visa was to be introduced. That has been put on hold because of the incident which took place yesterday, I guess. Before that, I think there was in December, I think, or maybe in January, that when the beheading incident took place, the visa for 65-year-old, that regime was put on hold. So it seems that the Indian government thinks that the visa regime is a big bargaining chip to punish Pakistan. And I think this is where the problem lies. That we don't know whether we are playing politics with the visa regime. The unmentionable word, the Kashmir issue. In the morning I heard that we should, the key to normalization is economic ties. It is a win-win situation, and I believe in that India and Pakistan are both to gain by if that happens. But nonetheless, I read yesterday when I was coming from Amritsar, I read the Hindu newspaper, I had a lead article written by some lawyer who said that Afzal Guru was hanged against all the norms of which the Indian Constitution stands for. He was not given the right to a lawyer. He was hanged without him being knowing, his family being informed. And whether the incident which took place yesterday, unfortunate, is a function of what is happening in Kashmir, or it's always to be blamed on Pakistan. Unless we change this mindset, Shah Sahab, I think we are going around in circles. And if any small incident is Pakistani and Indian trade relations and economic relations are hosted to that, this gives the incentive to the terrorists to do just that, to sabotage it. So I would only, my question in the end is that where to go from here? How do we evolve a modus vivendi to do business with each other? Thank you.
Thank you. There was more in nature of a comment than a question, unless Shah Sahib, you want to make any comment on that, or perhaps seek another question from the audience. Yes.
Hi, Vijat Khan. I'm a journalist from Pakistan. This is a shorter question. There was a list Professor Taneja banged out this morning on the PowerPoint presentation she made about the stakeholders in India who are essentially for trade. That included, of course, the Indian military, etc., etc. I mean, considering that there can be an equivalent list made, could you run us through the accuracy of, firstly, her depiction, and perhaps the counter-narrative to that from Pakistan's? Like, you've been seeking and probing the champions of trade, and ICRA is definitely the heavyweight champion of that. But what about the anti-champions? Like, who are the people, the guys, the institutions we should be watching out for on both sides? Let's just clarify the list, if you will.
Shah, this is a question. Would like to make any comment on this one?
When I was talking about the institutions, what I meant was that these are the institutions that are playing a role on both sides, but I was commenting on the Indian side, that there are multiple institutions engaged, and their role is changing. For instance, when I said there's Ministry of Home, there is Customs, there is Ministry of External Affairs. So they all have to be arranged in a constellation which is vertical and hierarchical. And that is a mammoth task in itself. So I did talk about the media, and what I mentioned was that media's perception, in India at least, is changing. There was a lot of negative reporting until very recently, and that seems to have changed, and I think that's a very positive change. And when I'm talking about institutions, what I mean is that all of them have to, their mindsets have to change for the process to go ahead.
Yes. Ritesh, please.
Nitish Sengupta is my name. First of all, I think we should remember that trading is not done by the government, but by traders, businessmen. So why shouldn't the government take the back seat for a while and let the traders handle, let the chambers of commerce from different countries or groups of sit together and decide what articles Pakistan need and what articles India need. And I am sure there can be a lot of complementarity. And once they start trading together, afterward they will find that Kashmir can be left aside for the present and let us make more money by trading. And the opportunities are endless, absolutely. So I think we should let the government should take the back seat for a time being and let the traders handle the matter through mutual discussion, and whatever they decide, the government should accept it. Secondly, this problem about...
It would be a fantastic kind of arrangement. This is what you were saying this morning, that they don't ask you what should be the rules. So that's the whole idea of this, that the government should take a back seat, let the trade and economics, let's take it off, and hopefully that will lead to an improvement in general also.
No, I agree with you that, and I should comment, there was an enormous amount of progress which was made when my colleague who is here, Mr. Manishankar Iyer, and myself, we were part of a parliamentary delegation which visited Pakistan, particularly in the area of trade and commerce. There were a large number of recommendations which were made. Quite a few of them were implemented. But I think that quite a few of them got stalled. For instance, that the whole issue of the switch between the negative and the positive list should have been really completed quite some time ago. The issue that this country was expecting the MFN treatment issue to have been resolved by December got interrupted due to various things. So I think that there are factors which are really at play, and I agree that there are a number of institutions and organizations which have to act really in constellation with each other. But I think that the progress which has been achieved in the last 18 months, which is not inconsequential, that momentum, it would be a pity if that momentum really begins to falter on account of numerous other factors which have begun to interrupt the process. And I was joking to you, you asked me if there was any important news today. I said perhaps Indo-Pakistan relations are as unpredictable as the meteorological forecast, because you begin your morning with one thing, it might end up with something totally different. So I think, and another very interesting joke, in the same delegation which I was with Mr. Manishankar Iyer, an important senator of yours showed me something that the Indo-Pakistan relations are like the game in a Ludo of snake and ladder, that when you are about to reach 99 to 100, something happens which brings you down with great ferocity to point zero. But I think that really speaking, we are all beginning to learn, whether adequately or not, because I think it's not coming to zero. I think there is a measure of understanding that we need not give up on all the progress which has been made, and I think that there is no doubt. We will anxiously now really await the transition in Pakistan, since you mentioned that 16th is the last day when the present parliament would be there, that there is going to be an interim arrangement, and by the end of May, hopefully, the elections will bring about an orderly new government in office, and that it is no mean achievement that on the 16th it will be 5 years of first time of a civilian government which would have completed a full term in office. And we very much hope that the elections which are to take place will bring about the same degree of stability which has visited really the Pakistan political scenario over the past 5 years. Yes, please.
Sir, my name is Yawar Ali. I'm chairman of Nestle and also the vice president of the India-Pakistan Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And my question is to you, Mr. Singh, is what steps do you think are necessary to take this process forward? Because every time, as you said, we come close to something, some decision, the process goes back. And so is it leadership that is required, or is it something else that is required? We'd like to have your view on that, please.
I think that clearly all this cannot make progress without leadership on both sides, and there is no question on that. Leadership, sagacity, in which a degree of trust is built, but simultaneously I think a number of other initiatives need to be taken. For instance, I do believe that the ongoing process of dialogue between parliamentarians of the two countries has